Hey everyone, I am Kate Volman, and I am so excited to be joined by my friend Jason Zook. He is such a creative entrepreneur, and I am so excited for you to hear his story because he has an incredible journey. He is best known for making over $1 million wearing t-shirts for a living. He has also sold his last name, which is crazy, and then he sold his future. So I'm excited to dive into his story, and really the purpose of me wanting to chat with him, because we've been friends for a few years now. I kind of was one of the first followers way back when you started in 2008. Is really just going to be around creativity. I want you to hear his story and his journey, and really get inspired to try new things in your businesses. So Jason, thank you so much for taking the time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always fun. I actually had someone email me the other day who was like an original OG I Wear Your Shirt, like from the beginning. They're like, I remember when the videos were really awkward. And I was like, oh, thanks for bringing that up. But like they're still on my email list, and we're 8 or 9 years later almost, which is crazy to think about. So thank you so much for the support, and I'm happy to be here sharing whatever I can to inspire people, or at least to have them be like, wow, that guy was weird. So either way, I'm happy.
Awesome. All right. So there's so much that I feel like you offer so many things. So when I thought to do this, I'm like, okay, I want to keep it kind of short and sweet, but at the same time, I feel like there's so much stuff that you have been doing over the past year that I just think a lot of people can learn from, because you really share your journey. It's not like a lot of people talk about, hey, you need to do this in your marketing, or you need to do this when you grow your business. You're like, hey, I tried this, it didn't work, but I learned this, and now I'm trying this new path. And that's what I really love about how you share your journey. You're just so transparent with it. So before we talk any further, can you just kind of share from the beginning, back in 2008, when you started I Wear Your Shirt, and how you even thought of the idea, and a little bit about what happened when you did start it?
Yeah, so I had a design company at the time. I had left the 9-to-5 world, thankfully, a complete beige existence that I hated. And I was kind of trained as a designer, classically trained as a designer, which doesn't sound as cool when you're like a pianist and you actually can do something of awesome value. Anyway, so I had this design company, and I was doing that, and we had our clients. This was 2006 and 2007. And so they were asking us about, hey, should we be on YouTube? Should we be on Facebook? Should we be on Twitter? And I was on none of these platforms. I knew of them, I'd heard of them, but this is like early. This is when Facebook was only college. This is when literally people only tweeted when they were like making a sandwich. Like there was not any conversation going on. And this was really before YouTubers. Like YouTubers did not exist. It was just the beginning of people putting some videos online. But I saw that there was an opportunity where there were people on these platforms talking, interacting, communities that were building. I was like, this is interesting. These companies that we're building websites for and that are doing marketing and creating stuff, they want to reach these people, but there's no real way to do that. And I just happened one day to be sitting, like doing work, and I was like, oh, I should probably put a shirt on today because for myself, and that's probably what you should do. And I walk into my closet and I look at like this row of shirts, and it just hit me after these questions being asked, and I was looking at this stuff, and I'm looking at like Nike, Polo, all these brands that I'm just walking around wearing every day. I've paid these companies for these things, and then I'm just like schlepping them around, and I'm not getting paid for it. I'm not doing anything. And I'm like, man, wouldn't it be interesting if I could continue to wear other brand shirts, but then tell their story and do that and get paid for it? Like that could be an interesting thing. And I remember I like went on Instant Messenger, because that was a thing at the time. And I'm like instant messaging some people, and I'm like, oh, I just had this idea. And like all of them, which was probably like 7 people, but it's better if you say all of them, because it sounds like a lot. They're like, this is stupid. What are you doing? You have a design company that's working well. Like you have the life, you live it, work at home, and you go to the beach all day long. I was like, yeah, but this seems interesting. Like this is like lighting a fire into me. I'm really feeling like there's something here. And I think a lot of people have probably felt that way at one point or another when they have an idea. And the difference between having the idea and then executing idea is basically the whole reason why I wrote a book, because it became the whole journey. Just like you said, like for me, it was more about here's my life, here's what I'm doing, less about like here's a company every day that's on my shirt. And so yeah, when I Wear Your Shirt kind of launched, the idea was every day I would wear a different shirt for a different company. I would post a photo or two of them. I would make a YouTube video, which I'd never done before. I didn't even know camera. I had no idea what I was doing. I would host an hour-long live video show. I had no business hosting a live video show. I was not an interesting person. There was nothing like unique or different about me. I literally sat on a couch and just talked to the internet like I'm doing right now. But that was every day. And I did that for 5 years. And the first year, like the first couple weeks that I did it, you know, it was actually pretty well followed because I had done a lot of work ahead of time. And that's something I've learned over time, and I've preached as I've gone on to do other things, and I continue to do with every project I've worked on, that there's always like a pre-marketing phase. There's a build-up phase that a lot of people don't want to do because that's the work. And you have other work that you have to do, but I really found that the months leading up to the beginning of 2009, I was sending emails every day. I mean, 10, 20, 50, maybe 100 emails in a day, just to people, like reaching out to companies, reaching out to people I knew, reaching out to like aunts and uncles and family, and just asking them if they would share this I Wear Your Shirt project. You know, then I was on Twitter and I was trying to figure out how to navigate that space and do things on there. And again, we're 2008. So, you know, I was really just figuring this out. And when it launched, I Wear Your Shirt was sold in an interesting way. And I think that was a big thing that really helped me kind of have that idea happen. Was the first day was $1, the second day was $2, the third day was $3, all the way up to the last day of the first year was $365. $13 on the 13th day, it's not a big risk for a company. And kind of the big thing for me, not only was the first couple of people buying, but Zappos bought the 29th day. And I remember all I did, this is how I got Zappos to buy the day. I emailed Tony Hsieh because I found his email online, which I just figured was tony@zappos.com, got lucky. And his assistant wrote back and was like, hey, you know, I kind of check all of Tony's emails first. This is kind of weird and interesting. I'm going to pass this along, and he'll write back. And I remember Tony writing back. He was like, cool, what's the next available day? Like, I'll have my assistant do it. We'll send you like the Zappos culture guide and a shirt and all that stuff. And, you know, I wore the shirt on the 29th day, and I made the joke. I still remember it from the live video show. I was like, yeah, billion-dollar company spent $29. Like, thanks a lot, Tony Hsieh. Like, really appreciate it. But, you know, it was great. It was fodder for me forever, and I used it for so long because it was just a big company that said, oh, I'll try this out. And that's ended up, you know, what I Wear Your Shirt became. It became a piece of marketing for a lot of different companies that they could do. So yeah, you know, to save the entire 5-year journey, because we'd be here forever, I grew I Wear Your Shirt from 1 person myself to 2 in the 2nd year, and then 5 in the 3rd year, and then it was 5 again in the 4th year, and then it became, at the end of it, it became like a weekly video production company because I really just got burnt out. And I worked every day of the year. I worked 889 days straight when I first started. Not a single day off.
That is insane.
Every day. It was crazy.
So I want to touch on something because this is what I find so fascinating is because we talk to, I mean, I speak to all these different business owners and they want to get things right. They want to figure out the plan. They want to have, like, they want to know the end result when it comes to all the online marketing stuff that they're doing. And I think what's so great about any business is you have to start doing stuff, and from doing the things every day, it presents new opportunities and stuff that you just would never even be able to map out if you tried. So obviously you need to have a plan, but at the same time, when you started this, you didn't know what it was going to turn into. You didn't know that that 5-10 years later you're going to be selling your future. Yeah, well, and I think that's a really good point. And I think perfectionism derails a lot of progress for people in their businesses. And it really becomes a thing where you let your assumptions dictate your decisions. And I think it's a very dangerous place to be. And I've seen it over and over again. And I think I'm just so ignorant or naive that I don't do that. And it showed up so many times and continues to show up. And I'll give you one specific example. I mentioned I made a YouTube video every day. I didn't own a video camera. I didn't know how to do anything. And in my mind, when I sat down to film the first video, I was like, this needs to be like documentary quality. It needs to be great. I need to have good lighting, angles, all this composition, everything. And then I realized I'm the person in it. I have to write it. I have to script it. I have to edit it. I have to upload it. Like all the I's that I had to do, how am I going to do that? How am I going to make it so great? I can't do that. I can't do any of that. So here's what I can do. I can set my camera in my car. I can drive somewhere. I can talk to the camera, and maybe that will be interesting. And then what I realized is that video is going to be done. And then tomorrow, guess what? I have to do another one. And then the day after that, I have to do another one. And when I started to put it in perspective of, I'm not going to make a perfect video every day, but if I can just get a little bit better every day, and if I can just get it done and get it out into the world, here's what happens. 5 years later, my YouTube channel has 13 million views. And what it started with was a video that I'm so embarrassed to watch and I absolutely hate. But
it's what it is. That's where it started, and it's where you have to begin. And every marketing strategy or plan or business or anything, it has its warts. It has its like gross things that you just are so ashamed of. But those are the things that get you to all the good stuff. Those are the things that get you to being on the Today Show. And you don't start with that. You start with the really embarrassing, not so great, not the perfect thing that you want. It's just the thing that you can get done, that you can absolutely do, and then you move forward from there. That's really something that like is just a repetitive cycle I've seen over and over again.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the fact that you share that journey. I still, it's crazy, Jason, because I still remember getting the email and reading it in my car on my phone where you were talking about building was not what you wanted to be building anymore with with all the t-shirt wearers and everything. And I was like, I just remember that was, not everybody was doing that at the time, and I definitely wasn't following people who were so free. Like you were kind of like one of those first people that were doing really cool things online that I found. And so reading that email, I just thought, wow, that's really cool that he's sharing all this information with us. And then when you launched other things, it was like, yeah, of course we want to support you. Of course we want to be there for you. So.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I feel like that was something I resisted for so long, and specifically was sharing the vulnerable moments. Because with I Wear Your Shirt, if you think about it, every day I had to be on. Everything had to be great, because I'm representing a company. The company that's on my shirt is paying me. I can't be like, I'm sick or things are bad or I broke up with my girlfriend or whatever. And these things happen throughout my life, but I just had to like put on this like pretend everything's great face. And I did that. Like that wasn't anything I was forced to do. And when I finally realized I didn't have to do that, and that people actually like yourself, they appreciate the vulnerability. They appreciate being authentic. They appreciate hearing, oh yeah, this guy isn't perfect. Or, you know, when I admitted that I had $100,000 in debt when I walked away from I Wear Your Shirt after 5 years, it shocked people. And I was ashamed to say that it made $1 million in revenue, because I felt like I was a fraud. Literally on paper made $1.2 million over the course of 5 years. But I had $100,000 in debt at the end of it, because it just didn't work. And I made a bunch of decisions that didn't work out. And that was what I had to live with. And I think a lot of people really resonated with hearing that. And then they knew that like, okay, well, Jason's a hard worker. So how's he going to get out of this? You know, like what's he going to do? And that just became the story. And what I've done for the past now 3 years is how I've gotten over these things, how I've gotten through these things, and how I've made changes in my life. You know, I think that's a big thing too, is I've gone from like wanting things and having goals and, you know, wanting to hit milestones in my business and success metrics that really mean nothing. You know, they're great for a headline on Inc. magazine, but that doesn't pay your bills, unfortunately. That doesn't get people to actually like support you and buy your products. That's just good for some media company that needs a new headline.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because I love that you moved, you were in Jacksonville, you moved to San Diego.
Yep.
And you consider yourself now more minimalist, like that whole more minimalist lifestyle. So let's talk about that, because that's another thing. I just love that you really call people out, especially for someone who had a business that was so social and so all about online marketing and posting videos and being really, really vocal online, to now I just read one of your blog posts talking about building a community and you were talking about, I don't really even do that much socially anymore. So talk about kind of that transformation and how that's really kind of impacted your life and business.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of identity searching that was going on. You know, when I started out with I Wear Your Shirt, I mean, there's no hiding the fact that like I wanted to be famous. Like I did that, and there was a part of me that was like, this is going to make me famous. People are going to know who I am. And then when you start to realize in the very small, tiny amount of fame that I had gained, it's not fun. You know, like it seems cool and it seems awesome, but when you're pulled in every different direction, and when you're getting 300 to 500 emails a day, like, yeah, first world problem. But when you care, like when I really care about the community and the clients and the people, and I can't answer those, that sucks. That weighs on you. That really, it kind of hurts. And then when you realize like you're a piece of meat for media companies, like I was so thrown around. I've been emailed by so many production companies who want to make the like entrepreneurial reality show. And it's funny because it's changed from, we want you to be on the show to like, we want you to host the show. You know, you'd be a good host for the show. I'm like, no, I don't want to be on this, because I'm just going to be a piece of meat for you to throw around and like tell what to do. And that's going to tarnish my reputation as the guy who did that. And I'm not interested. And So I think there's just a lot of really like big changes that happened for me. And so getting into the debt was a big slap in the face. And I remember being at this conference in Fargo, North Dakota, of all places, and I was supposed to be there to speak. And this was right as I was basically transitioning out of Ira Your Shirt. And there was a guy who got up on stage. His name is Joshua Fields Milburn. Amazing hair. He looks like a young Christopher Walken if you look him up. His website is theminimalists.com. He and his buddy Ryan have been friends since they were fat little fifth graders, as they like to say, which is just hilarious. I love it.
Oh my God.
But I remember hearing his story, and it sounded like my story. Like he's talking about, like, I was always trying to make more money, and then I was trying to buy more things because I thought those were going to make me happy, and I wanted a house, and then maybe I'll have another house, and then I need to, make more money and all this stuff. And you just find yourself trying to level up at all times, but for what? And what you realize is that you're chasing the dream of somebody else. It's not your own dream. It's things that you've seen on TV or it's things you read about that you're like, oh, okay, that kind of seems cool. At least I'm seeing that and reading about it, but it actually doesn't make me feel good. And so I had a lot of long conversations. I give my girlfriend Caroline a lot of credit. She's the deep feeler of our relationship. And, we just had a lot of long talks about, like, what do we want in life? Like, what matters to us and what are we actually doing? Like, what are we chasing? And I just realized that it's not the stuff. Like, yes, I love cars, but I don't need to own a car. I can go rent a car, like I literally just did for this road trip we just did. And that services me, and it costs me a very small fraction of money, as opposed to getting myself into a bunch of debt to have this thing that is only going to depreciate in value, and then I'm going to worry about and care about it. And there's all this other stuff. And it made me realize all these things. Like, I just was choosing all the wrong things based on what I thought I was supposed to do. And so instead, really started to think about my values. And a great book that helped me do this was Pam Slim's Body of Work. And I tell people to read this book all the time. It's such a great book. And it really helped me just to, like, actually write out things that I didn't even really know that I was thinking about, but she asked such great questions. And it was an evolutionary process. Like, this doesn't happen overnight. I didn't get into debt overnight. I wasn't going to get out of debt overnight. I didn't have these values overnight. They weren't going to change overnight. But it's just been this slow process. And now I'm just super intentional about all the decisions I make. And to specifically go back to, like, social media stuff, I really believed when it got started, like, this was such a great thing. And now as it's moved forward, I tell people, like, social media is the last thing you should do. It is an add-on. It is sure, it makes sense. And yes, it can work. It can absolutely do gangbusters for certain people in certain instances, like Pinterest and Instagram, and all this stuff can be really great. But if the foundation of your business, if you don't have a fantastic product, and that doesn't mean it has to be like a mind-blowing or crazy or some amazing thing, but it's just a really great product that solves a problem for someone or is super useful or entertaining, and you don't have great customer service, those things need to be fixed first. And then from there, like, for me, it's like, build an email list and be giving them all the value that you can, be sharing awesome things with them, because you control that relationship. Like, I can send you an email and I can send a list of people an email. No one can change that. There's no algorithm in the inbox that says, like, oh, no, this one's now gone because it says whatever. I mean, when Gmail introduced the promotions tab, that scared a lot of people, but it was easily kind of navigated around. It didn't really have that big of an effect after a while. But when Facebook changes their algorithm on a Facebook page, we're all screwed, because you realize, oh, I've spent all this time and money building this audience here. Now they control the messaging. You're, as my friend Paul Jarvis says, you're playing in someone else's playground. You need to build your own playground and play in it. And so that's really been the thing for me, Kate. Like, I enjoy Twitter and I enjoy Instagram. I don't like Facebook. I don't like the ecosystem. I don't like the newsfeed. I now have the Chrome plugin that blocks the newsfeed, so I don't even see it. Because what you realize is that people are not telling the truth. They're sharing their opinions.
Oh my
their
gosh,
ideas.
it's so true. So true.
True. They're putting things out in the world that they want to represent themselves, and it's rarely an honest view. And what sucks is I realize this, like, when you share honest stuff, it doesn't always get the likes and the shares and the comments, because people are like, oh, that kind of hits home. Like, that I'm actually feeling that same thing, and it doesn't work. And so I don't spend a lot of time there anymore, and I don't focus on it. What I focus on is building, this is a super long answer to your question, but what I focus on is building my community through email, because it's where I want to hang out. It's where I want to spread the message. I control the time. I control the responses. I am a control freak, and that's one of my values. And I know that, but it's also brought me a lot of joy and success and feeling that I'm doing the things the way I want to be doing them.
So tell us about the projects that, well, I know we can't go into everything, but you did sell your last name, which is crazy.
I did.
And awesome. But I'm really curious to know now, what are you, I mean, I know what you're working on, but what's your future look, besides the fact that you sold it? What does that even mean, you sold your future? And what do you see for you and your business over the next few years?
Yeah, it's a really fun and loaded question for me. And it kind of, as I moved out of I Wear Your Shirt, it was like a midlife crisis almost. It was like, who am I? What am I doing? What am I good at? And when you let go of something that you've done for, for me, it was for 5-6 years. Even if you do it for 5 or 6 months, it leaves you kind of a void. What do I do? Every day I would wake up, I kid you not, and I would look in my closet and be like, I feel like I should be doing something. I put on a shirt every single day and I filmed a video. Now I don't know what to do with myself. And what I found that was really helpful for me was just to say, what have I learned? What have I experienced that maybe I could help somebody out with? Maybe I could teach somebody else the lessons that I've learned. And a lot of that became just writing about entrepreneurship, writing about owning your own business, writing about marketing, writing about anything I had learned. And then it became writing about like values and life perspective and those things. And writing became the outlet for me that really helped me just to like continue to grow as a person. And then it got me into, which is kind of a natural progression, into building info products. So like courses and, now a software that helps people build courses. But I just I didn't really say, here's what I have to do next. I just said, let me experiment. Let me try some different things. And that's what I've really done over the past couple of years. And it's got me to this place that I feel really good about. And it's that the majority of everything I do revolves around writing. I write this newsletter every Monday, and that's the thing that kind of like keeps my community growing and keeps everybody engaged. But then I'm building products that solve specific problems. And, I think the info product world is great. And I believe that everybody will probably have an online course. Like everyone had a blog a couple of years ago. Like that's a transition we're going through. Same with podcasting. It'll probably be the same thing. But I like to be in the space of building products that solve problems for people. And so I created a course software that does that. Recently with a buddy, we created like a workbook platform that helps people take notes with courses. And now I'm working on like way too many software products to even go over. But to come to your thing that you mentioned a couple of times, I'm selling those products individually. You can buy those individually, but I'm wrapping them together. And I did this for the first time last year and selling my future. And what that means is that people can literally buy access to everything I've created and everything I will create for the rest of my creation time in life, which could be 3 years and then I move to an island and no one ever hears from me again. Or it could be the next 50 years and I create an electric car. Like, I don't know. But I'm giving access to that at a one-time payment. And last year it was $1,000 and 173 people bought it because it was only open for 2 weeks. And this year it's opening up. It'll be open September 20th through October 4th. It'll be $1,500. And I'm actually limiting it to 200 people to buy it because to me, it's not about the amount of money that I can make. It's about continuing to build that community of people who are on a level playing field. They're willing to invest some money because I have 12 products that total like $6,000 in value. And they're willing to see the value of that. But they're also, and this is so funny because I just surveyed these people, is over 60% of them were like, I just want whatever Jason's going to make in the future. I don't know what that is, but they know that they don't have to pay for it because they've literally purchased this crazy thing that I'm selling. So yeah, this is my way of like, and it's kind of fun because when you think about it, and I did it intentionally. Yes, I'm selling it to these people at a capped price and I can't make any more money off of this group of people. But once Buy My Future closes, the window closes, then I can sell it all as individual products. And people still continue to buy them and they still continue to support me. And that's a really like cool place that I've gotten to, but it's not through luck. It's not through happenstance. It's through hard work. It's through decision making. It's through sacrifices. And it's through just being really intentional now about my choices and really going back to like those values that, we've talked about a couple times.
Oh, that is so awesome. So with so many different options and ways to go, I have two questions. One, I'll start with this one because I'm curious to know your thoughts. With people, when you're talking about entrepreneurs versus people that are creating online content and courses and more like the solopreneur type, what do you see as a difference between that? I know a lot of people talk about, I am this great entrepreneur, but they're not like a Tony Hsieh. It's just them and they're creating these online things. And it's a much different set of challenges if you are that solopreneur. So I'm curious to know your thought process when people call themselves entrepreneurs and that solopreneur not building something huge. I mean, huge for them maybe, but more of like these people that are creating things online.
Yeah, I think these labels are really interesting. And I wrote about this recently in that like we all need to understand what the definition of an entrepreneur is. It's not Elon Musk. Like when you open the dictionary, it doesn't say entrepreneur, Elon Musk. It's just people who are willing to take risks in their business. Like that's pretty much the definition of entrepreneurship. And so I believe whether you're a solopreneur like me, like I don't have anybody on full time. I'm myself. I answer all my emails. I don't have an assistant. Do I partner with other people on all these projects? Yes, because I have a lot of weaknesses like code and design and just partnering with people who are smarter than me. So I outsource those weaknesses to those people and then we collaborate. But to answer your question, I think these labels are just so interesting. And there's a lot of things that get attached to calling yourself an entrepreneur where some people just are like, they don't want to do it. They're like, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. I wouldn't do that. Well, technically you are. You are that thing. You are a business owner who is taking some type of a risk. You're not working at a comfortable 9-to-5 secure job, throwing air quotes in there, that aren't so secure anymore. But I really believe that when you're making that decision to do that, there's one really important thing that people don't think about. And then I learned this myself, is that you'll leave a 9-to-5 job or you'll leave working for somebody else, and then you'll build an even worse environment for yourself. You'll work 9 to 9. You'll not be able to ever stop looking at your email. You'll hate your customers because like they're complaining and you've put your heart and soul into what you're doing. And maybe hate is the wrong word, but you'll like loathe hearing from them. And that's really dangerous. And I think a lot of people don't do enough work up front to really like define boundaries, but then also say, I'm not going to get here overnight. I'm not going to get here in a week. I'm not going to get to a place maybe where this is going to sustain me, full time in 6 months, but that's okay. I'm not where I am right now, being able to sell my future and make, truthfully, I could just say it, hundreds of thousands of dollars because I just decided to do that one day. I had to earn that. I had to work toward that. And that's also going to go away. I'm not going to be able to do that forever. So for me, I'm capturing this in a moment in time, and I'm really happy to do that. But I think for other people who are starting out, if you're selling up for products, if you're blogging, if you're just creating art, if you're creating anything, you need to enjoy the thing that you're doing, and you need to pour all of your talents and your abilities into making that product amazing and then having good customer service, because that's what's going to sell that thing bar none over Facebook ads, over a social media content strategy. Make it so great that people can't ignore it and make it so great that people want to talk about it. That's the strategy. Like that's what people should be focusing on.
Okay, so my next question is for all of those creatives that are working on projects. They have a business and it's growing and building, but they're working on a couple different projects. Okay, I'm gonna use me as an example. Like sure. I have a lot of, I have some different projects that I'm working on. I have my clients and I have my business and how I earn my income, but then I have things that in my mind, I'm like, I'm not positive where this is gonna go. I know that it's good. I know it's good information. Like I started a show with my friend called Getting Down to Biz. It's just little tips about marketing. We're not monetizing it anyway, but I know that it's good content and it's shareable, and so we're able to kind of provide our community with good content. But I don't know, it's kind of like a project that I'm doing, and I have a couple of different projects that I know is good as far as like the work that I want to put out into the world, but it's not necessarily like part of my business model, but some interesting opportunities have come from it. So how do you have that balance of like, I want to try something and see if maybe it'll go somewhere or work in my business versus I have to have this great, only do the things that I know are going to work?
Yep. Yeah, I think this is you're a great example of this. And I think a lot of people are in a similar situation. I'm in a similar situation as you too. And what you have to do first is cover your bases. And this leads me to, I wrote an article called Find Your Flavor of Minimalism, because minimalism is different for everybody. And what it really means to me is living an intentional life, intentional spending, and just being able to say, what is the bare minimum that I need to live? And I think that's a question that people don't ask themselves enough, and that they've realized, like, I've overstretched myself. I spend money on things I don't need to. What can I really pare down? What can I get back to? And what you realize is that you can live on a lot less. Like you really can live on a lot less than you think. And I wrote that article, and you can find that article, it'll help you do that. But there's some practical stuff in there that really shows you like, oh, I actually don't need to make $6,000 a month. I actually only need to make like $2,000 a month. And what that does is it alleviates the pressure of then having to go, well, how can I do all that when you can say, I can do the client thing. Let me get like 2 clients locked in. Those are locked in for 3 to 6 months. Now my bills are taken care of. Okay, that relieves the financial pressure and strain. Now you can play. Now you can have the side hustle show. Now you can have the podcast that you want to do. Now you can go and host an art workshop for free in your town. Like whatever you want to do, you've earned the right to do that. Whereas if you just start out, and I just think it's dangerous that if you're just trying a lot of stuff and you like quit your job and you have no income, yes, that can work. But I think that takes a very specific, highly dedicated type of person who's willing to sacrifice everything else in their life. And that's not healthy. You know, I've been there. That's me. I'm describing myself. I'm willing to basically push all friends aside, everything aside, and like hunker down and do it. And that leads you to like gaining weight and being stressful, and then like wondering like, man, why do I feel like crap every day? And it's because there's no balance, like you said. And so I really think that like the way that you've outlined it is the right way to do it. And what happens is that you kind of feel like you're not at a finish line. You're at the finish line, Kate. Like I'm at the finish line now. I've made it. You know, when people ask me like, you know, what does it take? You know, someone emailed me the other day and they're like, when did you decide you wanted to be a millionaire? Never. And
oh my God.
I'm not a millionaire. Like that's not a thing that I am. And people find it weird when I say that I've made it, because I'm at a place where I feel so comfortable right now. Sure, I don't have lots of money in the bank. I can't just stop working and doing whatever I'm doing, but I like the balance that I have. And I've only earned that balance through finding it through testing a lot of different stuff. And so to get back to your question as well, which is like, how do you monetize your side hustles? How do you find, you know, kind of extra money? Because I love multiple revenue streams. I think I have 17 of them. There are too many things that and that doesn't mean like all of them make thousands of dollars. Like my YouTube ads still make me $150 a month. Woohoo, I can retire now. Yeah, exactly. By the way, that's what 15 million views gets you on YouTube, is $150 a month, just so you know, in case you want to start a YouTube business. But those things will happen naturally. So I'll give you an example for my podcast, Invisible Office Hours, that I host with my buddy Paul Jarvis. We started it 2.5 years ago under the assumption that we were talking on Skype and we were like, this could be interesting. Like we're talking about some interesting stuff that we think other people would like. Let's just post this as a podcast. We made no money the first season. And the second season, we figured out a way that we could make money. And the second season, we made $40,000 in our 12-week second season of our podcast. But the first season, we made nothing. It was absolutely nothing. And then the third season, we made a little bit of money, but it wasn't much. It was like $10,000. And the fourth season, we made about the same. And then in this season that we're about to launch, we're going to make about $12,000. But it didn't start out with how can we make money? It started out with let's make something. And if people like it, the money will come. And we just want to make it really good. And the best that we could. If you go back and listen to the first season of our podcast, you might even, if you're like listening to a lot of podcasts, go, this doesn't sound very good. Like the audio quality, because we recorded it through this instead of like what we've invested to, which is one of these nice microphones. We didn't have that when we started. We just used what we had and we went from there. So all of your side hustles are great. They should be chasing things that you really want to do, that you really enjoy, but don't worry about the money. Let the money come as it comes, and it will if it's something really great. And if it's not, be okay to let go of it and move on to something else.
Oh, that is so true. Such great advice. All right. So Jason, one last question about your community. I'm just curious, what do those conversations look like through email? Do you get something asked most often? Do you get a lot of emails from your community? I'm just curious as to what those conversations look like. Yeah,
the question I get asked almost every single day is, it's kind of the same question. It's, I don't have an idea. How can I find an idea? I want to start my own business. I don't want to work for somebody else anymore. Or I have an idea, but I don't really know what I'm doing. And I kept hearing that over and over again and over and over. And I was like, how would I answer this question? And I would write people back with just some thoughts. And then I said, let me actually write an article about this. Let me just sit down and just rip out an article on what I think. And that article is my most viewed article, my most sent article that I send to people. It's not the most trafficked article, because those are obviously the ones that like are weird and whatever. But the article is just called like how I would start a business right now with less than $20. And it basically walks you through every step that I would do right now if I was starting completely over. And actually, I use a lot of the steps in every new business that I create. Like I go back to it and I think about, okay, I kind of evaluate these ideas versus how much money they can make versus how much time they take. Then I look at like who can I reach out to talk to these things about? You know, and is there really a need for this, or is this just something that's like an idea that I have that might not need to exist? But this Getting Started article is #1 article that I send to people. And it's even in when you sign up for the Action Army, which is my email list. It's even in that email. It's like, P.S. most people ask about this. You're going to want to click this article and read it. And then people will reply and be like, where should I get started? And I'm like, it was in the email. You missed it. That's the question I get most often. But what's interesting for me is every week I send an email on Monday mornings, and I get somewhere between 50 and 200 replies, depending on the email. And that's basically every Monday of my life, is replying to all those emails, trying to help people if I can. And I've actually, it's been interesting, Kate, in the shift from probably 2 years ago when I started, where I really tried to help every single person that responded. And now I still respond, but I'm actually very honest in saying that, like, I don't think I can help you, like, or I don't have the advice to give here, because I believe that a lot of times people will take the feedback and advice they get as gospel when it comes from the wrong person. And so I'll be very honest, like someone just emailed me yesterday and like, hey, can you tell me about my sales page? And they're selling a social media for marketing course or something. And I'm like, I'm not your customer. You know, any feedback I would give you is not the right feedback. You need to go to your specific customer, anybody who might buy this, and ask them what they think. Is it the right wording that you're using? Is the price point within what they think they should be paying? Like, I could give you a lot of arbitrary and random feedback, but it's not actually going to help you. So that's been a big shift for me. And you asked very early on when we first started talking, what's kind of been the shift? And I've really gone from like how to start your business, how to learn how to do that, like those things, to now I really want to just focus more on sharing my journey. And like, here's the lessons and I'm already doing that, but I really want to get away from the like how-to stuff and more of here's what I did building this thing, or here's what I experienced when I messed this thing up, or I tried this and it didn't work, or I tried it, like next week's article is, I tried this, it did work, I didn't like it. And I still made money, but I'm walking away because I don't want to make money from something that like I have a feeling in my gut I don't like. So yeah, it's been a really interesting transition, but yeah, that's a long-winded answer. A lot of long-winded answers to your questions today.
I love them. I love them all. That's awesome. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time, Jason. As I said, you know, I've been a fan. It's been so fun watching you grow and do all these cool things. I love getting your emails, and
Thank you.
It's been fun to watch you and Caroline. I mean, both of you are doing some really awesome work. So I'm happy to know you and be part of your community. Where's the best place for people to find you? jasondoesstuff.com?
That's it. I do a lot of stuff. So that's my little home on the internet where people can find me. And that's where, you know, all of my things go out to the Action Army. If people want to sign up, it's completely free. Unsubscribe at any time. I don't even look at the subscriber numbers anymore. I've gotten over all that stuff, which is fun. So I just try and make people's Mondays more awesome. That's my goal right now. So.
Well, you do make my Monday more awesome. So thank you. Actually, it's fun. I get Chris Brogan's email on Sunday, and then I get your email on Monday.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.